new report reveals that cybercrime continues to grow at an alarming rate, creating serious threats for businesses and also consumers. And joining us today is cybersecurity expert Chris Novak, who is here to share some shocking information from Verizon's annual data breach investigation report. So Novak is the vice president of Verizon Global Cybersecurity Solutions with more than 20 years of experience providing solutions to prevent cyber threats. So welcome, Chris. I'm so looking forward to this talk because this is so important for people to be aware. What are the highlights of this Verizon report?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I appreciate the time. So the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, or DBIR as we often call it, it's now in its 18th year of publication. And one of the things I think is really interesting to take away is that we've got over 22,000 incidents that we've analyzed and over 12,000 data breaches that make up that data set. And it spans the globe. More than 130 countries are included in that. And there's a lot of key items that really jump out at us in terms of the elements of things like third-party risk. Or even for that matter, we often will talk about fourth party and fifth party risk, meaning that the threat actors may not be coming right at your front door. They may be coming through any number of intermediaries that you do business with. The other thing that I'll also mention is we see a lot of small and medium businesses, unfortunately, being heavily targeted, specifically with things like ransomware. And so it can be very much not just a business interruption, but a business ending type of situation. And then another one that really jumped out at us too was the commonplace element of, what we see is, personal devices being used for work purposes, or in some cases, BYOD devices that may not be all that well secured, leaving organizations susceptible to unexpected risk.
Well, yeah, terrifying, but good to know. And you mentioned small businesses. Now, they often don't have the money to be able to really reinforce their networks. What can they do to protect themselves?
Yeah, so the key there is around preparation. It's about training and awareness, because a lot of what we see, especially as it relates to small businesses, they're being taken advantage of the fact that, exactly as you pointed out, they may not have the same level of resources, but something that really stretches and goes a long way in that market is around the training. And what we found in the DBIR is that organizations that actually did robust and regular training, their users were less likely to fall victim to things like a phishing attack, which means that the organization is more likely to, get past that type of event if it were to approach their door.
Okay, good to know. And the training, so key, it sounds like. You mentioned phishing. What are the most common threats and the ways that these networks are penetrated?
Yeah, so phishing is an interesting one because the development and the breadth and expansion of things like generative AI have actually really, I don't know if I want to say blossomed or grew the phishing landscape. It used to be that the threat actors had to craft all those messages and figure out how they were going to target an organization or an individual. Now, generative AI, unfortunately, has made that a lot easier. It's kind of lowered the barrier to entry for a threat actor to target an organization, specifically, an SMB. There's a wealth of information that makes it just easy for them to do, and unfortunately, a lot harder for people to spot.
Right. And how, in terms of the consumer, how can they protect themselves?
And it's interesting because one of the things I often recommend is that, organizations should be looking at things both from a business perspective, but also a consumer and personal perspective. So we really lean into that notion that cybersecurity is a holistic thing. It doesn't start when you enter the workplace and end when you leave, but it's your whole life. At the end of the day, if we can encourage people to take those right actions all the time, it's part of their DNA, that likely will transcend and cross over to both consumer and business security. For most people, they are just as concerned, maybe even more so, about their own personal security. And so, using things like password managers, regularly rotating your passwords, and taking all of those steps into consideration, that can protect you at work, but also at home as well.
Okay. And how serious of a problem is this? I mean, it just feels like every day there's something, and I know banks are getting attacked all the time. How big of a problem is cybercrime?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'd say it's probably one of the biggest things that we see, because cyber has got a nexus with everything else that we do. I mean, just imagine, is there anything in your life or that of your audience where they can imagine that there is not a cyber component or a technology component to what they do? And probably the answer is no, it's everywhere. And so as a result, there is a natural tie-in from a cyber threat perspective into all of those elements as well. So you're right. We always see the banks being targeted because that's where the money is. But we also see education, we see retail, we see travel and transportation, we see energy and utilities. All of them are hit. Nobody is immune.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an overwhelming issue. So where can people go, Chris, for information about how they can protect themselves or their businesses?
Sure. Yeah, I would encourage people to download the report. It's chock full of information, lots of recommendations for all types of organizations. And they can get the report by going to verizon.com/DBIR, like data breach investigations report.
Okay, I am going to take a look at that because I think this is important. Maybe do something more in depth. So, Chris, thank you so much for all this great advice today.
My pleasure. Thank you.